As a recruiter, a big part of my job is checking in with candidates and seeing how they are going once hired. One thing I've noticed as a common trend among candidates that are not satisfied in their new environments or when speaking with candidates who are looking for a new job is that they didn't feel like they were onboarded correctly. And in their failure of an onboarding process, one thing that I realized that there were two phrases that were constantly being told to these people and being normalized, when in reality, these things can really reveal some red flags very early on. So I thought I'd make a little video talking about it and just kind of thinking about what to expect in these environments and how you can kind of work around them moving forward. So these are the phrases just wing it and sink or swim and things along these lines. Okay. Now, why is it a problem to be told these things? First and foremost is, and this is my lesson of the day, is that outcomes are never your target when you start. Okay. So when you're joining these companies and you're joining a new environment, it doesn't matter how experienced you are. You need to learn how they do things step by step, okay? And the only way you're going to learn how to do these things step by step is if you have somebody showing you how to do these things, okay? Now, this is something that I've noticed as joining my own new company is that everything I do in the company, it is structured and I am being taught by somebody at all times, okay? So it doesn't matter what aspect of my job, so I'm a recruiter. It doesn't matter if they're educating me on the industry. It doesn't matter if they are educating me on how to screen, how to read a resume, how to ask questions, whatever it is. Because I'm working in recruitment in a new industry, they understand, yes, I'll understand the core principles of recruitment, but every industry is different. So they're helping me get across the ins and outs of their industry as much and in depth as possible. Okay. Another thing I've realized that has been emphasized to me is to ask as many questions as possible. These are the types of environments you want to find yourself in. These are the types of places that when you join a new company, you are going to prosper most at. And the reason being is that, as I mentioned in my next point, outcomes are never your target in the early days. And the reason why is that you need to be understanding the process. Okay. When you start a new job and start at a new company, as I said before, doesn't matter how experienced you are, you need to understand how they do their things and how they arrive at the outcome. Okay. The goal is to not focus on the outcome itself, it's to focus and understand how they get there. Okay. Reason being is because when you're in there for 2, 3, 4 months, you're going to be given more and more responsibility. And there's no point in focusing on achieving an outcome if you're not going to be able to do the same thing twice. Okay? It's a, I guess the best way I can explain it is with this example and an equivalent in recruitment. Is obviously in recruitment, a big part of your success is the placements that you make. Okay? So if you join a recruitment agency and let's say the very, very first time you reach out to a candidate, you fluke it and you get the placement. Okay? That's great. You have the placement right there and then in that moment in time. But if you didn't really understand your process, if you didn't understand how you got there, you just kind of arrived there by luck, that's great for the short term, but it doesn't give you anything in the long term because now you're not going to be able to repeat that process once. So at the end of the day, you will be having that first placement in week one, but then week 2, 3, 4, 5, you're still going to have one placement. So it looked good for the short term because you arrived at the end goal. But if you don't understand how you got there, you're going to be stuck at that first point for the majority of time moving forward. And this is my problem with when people start telling people to just wing it or sink or swim with many things. I just find it's very dangerous because at the end of the day, you're not learning anything. You know, it sounds cool, it sounds quirky, like you just got to be thrown in the deep end and hope for the best. But in reality, it's a very dangerous principle. You know, I love the idea of, you have to think on the spot and you need to do all these things. I get all of that, and I think that they're very good traits to have in somebody. But when you're joining a new company, you need to be exposed to as much theory and as many ways as possible to get through to the end goal. Okay, your responsibility is to be learning as much as possible early on. You need to be absorbing as much information as you can. Okay, your goal should not be to just be achieving a million outcomes in that first month. And that's why, in that onboarding process and the start of when you join a company, your goal should be to learn as much as possible, not to just be thrown in the deep end and to try to make magic work. Okay? The real reason why this is a problem, and this is what I'm going to go into for my next point, is when outcomes are your target, at the end of the day, you don't understand one, how you get there, but secondly, in those next couple of months, when your expectations and your KPIs are not being met, you become the problem, you become the blame, you know? And at the end of the day, that's not what you want. That's not the type of environment that you want to be in, where you are being blamed for not achieving certain goals because you never understood how to actually get there in the first place, you know? You never want to be in an environment where they're kind of telling you to just kind of wing it and you just kind of figure it out as you go, because in that system, nothing is sustainable. You know, it's a little bit like XG for my football fans, where, you know, let's say in a game you're versing a team and they hit the post 5 times and you win the game 1-0. It's like, okay, great. On the day, you were the luckier person, you know, you got the outcome that both teams wanted. But at the end of the day, if your defense has been exposed 5 times, where 5 great opportunities can be created, and on another day that opposition is scoring maybe 2 or 3 of them, you're going to lose. Now, naively, and this is a big problem, is that when people arrive at the outcome first, they don't think they have to change anything because it's like, okay, well, this worked once, so it's good. The problem is that, and in a football equivalent, if you go into that next game thinking, yep, we've just won, we got what we needed, you're not going to address the real problems, the real root of the problems, and then the next week you're going to lose because that luck is not going to be on your side again. And this is the risk that you run in the corporate world. Is like, yes, it's great to be outcome focused and to be KPI focused 100%, but you need to understand how to get there. And if this environment that you are in and this company that you are in is not encouraging that, that is a real red flag. You know, they may not be showing it, and especially when you're joining a new company, they're not going to be giving off like, they're not going to be swearing at you. They're not going to be screaming at you. They're not going to be standing over you and intimidating you. They're never going to do these things to show that they are red flags, okay? But subconscious things like this that you need to be looking out for and thinking, okay, am I actually being taught what I need to be taught to be successful? Or am I just kind of being thrown into the deep end here and expecting to make magic work? You know what I mean? These are things you need to be careful of when joining a new company and even in your current team. If you don't feel like you have the ability to learn, that's a real red flag. Because at the end of the day, they're going to get angry at you for not achieving certain goals down the track. And you're going to have your monthly reviews, your quarterly reviews, and you're going to be behind. But at the end of the day, you're going to be thinking, well, how am I behind when I'm being expected to do things I was never taught? That's where you need to speak up. And this is what leads to my end goal here is, what is the solution? Okay. At the end of the day, you need to take some initiative. Okay. So what I would be doing if I was you is, if you are joining a new company and let's say it's about a month in or whatever, and you're realizing that the tasks they're giving you to do, or like your day to day is consisting of things you were never actually taught, you need to speak to somebody very, very quickly in your company, someone that you feel comfortable with, and just say, look, I need more time to be explained how to do this practically, or I need more time to be talked through how to do that. Okay? Especially guys in your first month, okay? Understand this, it doesn't matter what team or what environment you are in or what type of job you are doing. That first month, you need to be learning as much as possible. Okay? If you are just being thrown into the deep end, okay, and expecting to make things work, this is not a good sign. This is not a healthy sign, because at the end of the day, failure is going to be inevitable. Okay? Now, it's different if they're throwing you in the deep end and they're by your side. Okay? So let's say, for example, you are let's say receptionist. Okay? Or let's say, like, you know, one of my first casual jobs, I was working at a swim school. All right? And obviously, a lot of our instructors and coaches would be promoted to becoming managers. Okay. Now, as a manager, you would be kind of like the admin. So you would be at the desk and looking over the swim center. Okay. Now, what would happen is, to do your training, is you would be sitting at the main computer, and then you would have the actual boss sitting next to you at the second computer. Anytime a customer came in, you would be handling the interaction, but they'd be supervising you. Okay. That to me is not necessarily being thrown in the deep end. Okay. It's exposure. It's that whole exposure therapy. You're being pushed into it, into the environment, but you have somebody there to support you. Okay. You don't want to be thrown into an environment where you are expected to deliver all these results straight away with no way to work it out. Okay. I know it sounds cool and it's a nice story when it all works out. You're like, oh my gosh, I knew nothing, but look, I managed to do this and I managed to do that. You need to understand, guys, is that there are going to be people, and there's going to be people in this world that don't arrive at those miracle outcomes. And then what happens there? You have unsatisfied customers, you yourself feel lost and you lose your confidence. And then what happens? That derails your performance with weeks to go, because then you have let down your higher ups, you've let down your customer, and you let down yourself. Okay? It creates this really bad cycle of feelings and events, which you need to be avoiding, because again, in your early days at a company, you need to be learning as much as possible. Okay? So just be wary of this when you're joining a new company. Just be wary of how much freedom they really give you to start, and how much they actually show you very early on, and how and to understand their focus. Are they process focused or are they outcomes focused? Okay? And be sure, guys, to ask questions. Ask questions, explain how you are feeling, and be objective about it. If they throw you in the deep end about something, be like, look, guys, I had this interaction today. This didn't go well because of A, B, and C. Okay, I need more training in X, Y, and Z. Okay, be objective, don't be emotionally charged, and be able to present how you feel from an objective point of view, where they can then provide an objective solution. Okay, these are just a couple of things to look out for. This is based on my own experiences and people around me that I've spoken with. I hope you guys have gotten some value from this video and you can take this in your new job. I hope you guys enjoyed today. If you are interested in working with me on a one-to-one level, click the link below for a free consultation. Happy to organize a 30-minute chat. Hope you guys enjoyed today. Take care. I'll see you guys next time.